In this tutorial, we will create the content view to enable the user to enter the name and age of each person and save and retrieve the data from the SwiftData database. We will also enable the user to delete the data from SwiftData as well. So this is the UI we'll be creating. So the first thing we need to do is to implement our content view. Within your content view, enter the following after lines 10. At environment, model context, private var, model context. The purpose of the model context on lines 12 is to enable the application to save and persist the data within SwiftData. Next, we need to create another variable at query, and we also need to import SwiftData. Really, this should be done within a view model or included in some abstraction like another class or file somewhere. Query private var people person model. So the purpose of lines 14 is to perform a query on the entity, which is within our person model. That's the name of the table, person model. So the purpose is to query the person model and then capture all of the results and store the actual results into an array of people. At state private var new age string. That will store the age of the person. At state private var person equals person model dot person details. As mentioned last week, person's data is a struct, and the purpose of doing it this way is so that to enable the struct to conform to codable, so that SwiftData can convert it into state for persistence and back into a struct again when needed. So it's just so that it can be like bindable to our text fields. The next thing we need to do is to delete everything between lines 20 and line 26. And then create a navigation stack and then a V-stack form. Within the form, we need to include some sections. So we need a header, text, new person, which is the section, text field, name, text, person.name. And this is where we do the binding, and that's why we need to make sure that the struct conforms to codable so that we can retrieve the name property. Dot padding, background, color, UI color, dot corner radius 9, dot font system size 24, weight dot load, design dot default. And then we do a similar thing for age. So what I'll do is just copy this block between 9:25 and 29. Select copy. I'll just paste it. Change the name of the text field to age. Person. So because it's an integer, we have to convert it into a string. So we need to use the variable new age, $, new age, keyboard type. Because it's an age, we want it to be a number pad, keyboard for numbers only. And then padding stays the same. Background color, that stays the same. Radius is the same. And font, it's the same as well. So now what we need is we need a button. So the button will be implemented within its own section. Call it button, add person, guard let age equals int new age string. Else return. So this line on lines 43, just some basic validation. If the age cannot be converted into an int, it will just return from this method. But if the age can be converted into an int, then it will continue to do the next procedure, which is to creates a new variable called person, and then we have to use the person model called the initializer of the person model. Which is age, person.name. And now that we have the full information for the objects, we can then populate the variable by using the return value from the initializer. So now we can use the model context.insert method and then attempt to save the person to SwiftData. Save the record to the database. And then we also need to set new age string to blank again. So as I said, next time in future tutorials, I'll create this using MVVM to make it much neater. Because really, the logic and the data access code, it shouldn't be in the view. It should be in separate files. So the next thing we need to do is to, now that we save the record, so when the user clicks on the add person button, records will be saved to the database. But now we need to do it so that when they have added the data to the database, the data can be retrieved and displayed within a list. So after lines 51, enter the following list. Section header text, and then I'll just call it list of people for the caption. Then we need to use a for each because we have to loop through the array. For each people person in, so that's the closure. For each people, and create a navigation link. The destination of the navigation link will be edit view, but we'll be doing that next week. So we just add something temporary, just call it empty. I mean empty view. Yeah, empty view. H-stack. Within the H-stack, we need a V-stack. The V-stack alignment, dot leading. Text, person dot name. Dot font, title, text, age, person dot age, dot font dot subheadline dot foreground color dot gray. After line 68, we need to add a bit of padding. Add a spacer so that we can add our button. And the purpose of this button is to enable the user to delete or remove a person from the database. So we have to do if let index equals people dot first index of person. So what that does on line 70, it passes the person object to the first index property of the people instance, and then if a record was found, it will then execute the code within the if statement. This is model context dot delete people index. So if the record was found on line 70, that means it has the index reference of the record that we want to be deleted. So then it gets the array, the object array, and then passes that object to the delete method of the model context. And then it deletes the record from SwiftData. And then we also need to apply this as well, system name, trash, because on the right hand side of the list it has a trash can, and the trash can signifies that the user can attempt to delete the record from SwiftData by swiping the list. Foreground color red, and then there's something else I've got to include. We need to have the delete method to enable the user to swipe the list to enable deletion of the selected record from the list, so that the deletion is saved to core data, to SwiftData. So to do that, we need to type in the following: private function delete task index set for index in index set model context dot delete people index. So that does the actual deletion. When we click on the trash icon, and this is done on lines 83, so we need to enter dot on delete, delete task. Delete task. I cannot find delete task. Right. Can't find delete task. This one. Delete. I know what it is. I spelled it incorrectly. Delete. That should be delete task. Yeah, there it is. Delete task. Now, the next thing we need to do is to include our navigation bar title. This is called navigation bar title people. Now just compile it. It's compiling at the moment. Now I'll attempt to run it. Just loading at the moment. So now let's try to save some data. Trying to enter some data into a simulator. I'll just enter Fred, age 20, click on add person button. As you can see, Fred has been saved to the database. Now I'll add another name, call it John 30, add it to the database. The next thing I'll do now is to exit the program and then rerun it to show that the data is being persisted. So now I'll run it again. And then we should see the two records in the database within the list, as you can see here. So next, oh yeah, let's try to delete one. So I'm going to delete Fred from the database. It's deleted, but just to make sure that the deletion has been persisted, I'll rerun the application again. As you can see, Fred is no longer in the database. And next week, we will add the functionality to enable the user to edit the name and the age. So if they click on the arrow here, it will enable them to navigate to another view and update the information on the screen within text fields. Thank you for joining us. If you found this tutorial helpful, please comment, like and subscribe. See you next week.